How one trailer destroyed a movie.
Last week, Disney dropped the latest Snow White teaser trailer, and unsurprisingly, everybody hates it. With over 850,000 dislikes and only 70,000 likes, along with a comment section filled with absolute scorn on Disney, the teaser trailer has become one of the most hated trailers of all time, and the film has become everything wrong with Disney in 2024. And while the movie has tragically been ruined by Disney, it's almost comical to watch them mess up the movie this badly. I mean, for starters, the original version of Snow White was to include Snow White and her 7 magical force diversity dwarfs, who aren't even dwarfs themselves. And when actual dwarf actors started complaining that Disney was in fact
What's the point then? Is it really called 7 dwarfs?
not actually inclusive and dwarfs were excluded for the role as dwarfs, Disney changed their tactics. Now in the new trailer, they have just replaced all of the actors entirely and made the dwarfs CGI, and the results look as you'd expect, absolutely awful. Even though this movie is supposed to be a live action movie, it almost looks like it's completely CGI now. But the question is, how did Disney make the movie this bad? How did one of the most beloved movies of all time become so despised by everyone? Well, former fans of Disney have
at least make it all animation or something.
Everything thrown at them. All the worst political messaging, virtue signaling, hypocrisy, and celebrity preachiness shoved down their throats 24/7. And while some could ignore it for projects like The Little Mermaid, Snow White was the breaking point for Disney fans. It all began originally with Zegler's casting. You see, what made the casting choice so bad was that Zegler seemed to actively hate the original film, and approved of everything the studio was doing to alter it beyond recognition.
You know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
As promotions for the upcoming film began,
what does that mean?
The young actress openly bad-mouthed the original movie, infamously calling it extremely dated in its ideas about women and referring to the love story as creepy and weird.
But the story and idea is still relevant.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird.
Everyone suddenly saw that she hated the film, which is a terrible basis to market the movie in and of itself, playing one of the most lucrative roles you could imagine, and then just hating on it. And so of course, the fans of this absolutely hated it. Still, I suppose you can't expect any better from a company that has proved that it has zero respect for the history of the franchises it's purchased over the years, nor the fans that made the franchise so famous to begin with. Walt Disney attempted to do some damage control by making Zegler completely change her personality and sticking her in a room where she had to tone it down and appear all meek, honoring the work of their respective projects. The damage was already done, and everybody could see how fake this PR move was.
But it's so much fun. Like, it goes back down to the root of why these movies were so successful when they came out, is because they captured the human emotion so well.
Zegler's words were already plastered across the internet for all to see, and nobody could unsee it. But the backlash to this film is way
she could say anything now that would redeem the audience's minds.
More than just this casting role. You see, people couldn't understand why the studio had taken arguably one of its greatest creations, the thing that made Walt Disney famous himself, and decided that even though it was highly successful, it wasn't suitable for modern audiences, and therefore needed to change. While Zegler's sentiment was jarring, at the end of the day, they had been enabled by Disney and were just a window into what the studio seemed to think of their original product. The reality is, if the executives truly valued the film, they would never have thought numerous changes were necessary. One of the most controversial changes that I mentioned earlier, and that fans completely bashed Disney for in the comments, was thanks to a comment made by Peter Dinklage, who chastised Disney for making a backwards story about 7 dwarfs living in a cave. Many found it weird that a man who had no issue playing fantastical characters in projects like Narnia, Elf, and even Marvel would suddenly have such a visceral reaction to something like Snow White. But Disney were more concerned about not offending anyone, so the studio decided that the best way to avoid any potential discourse was to change the 7 dwarfs to 7 magical creatures, effectively erasing the iconic characters and the rare opportunities they once afforded. People were upset about the compromise and the fact that the words of one highly successful man had now cost 7 others a chance at success, completely ruining the whole live-action remake thing that Disney was going for.
Of course, it had to be diverse.
But then when the set photos leaked and everyone got to see the actual magical creatures, people couldn't believe 1, how bad the cheap costume design looked, and 2, that these people weren't dwarfs and were all completely forced in for a diversity quota for Disney. While Disney initially tried to deny that the shots were from their sets, they soon backtracked and claimed they weren't the official photos. Now the studio did inform people that the magical creatures would be improved with CGI, but I don't think anybody was expecting the final product. The product that we just got to witness last
nice.
Because as it turns out, the studio's solution to avoiding reinforcing stereotypes was to recreate the original characters with CGI in a hyper-realistic yet cartoony style, reminiscent of what they did in Pinocchio. This comes with Disney completely overusing CGI in their movies, often being used to just replace the work that goes into set design and costuming, thus just making their movies look more cheap and increasingly hollow and soulless, something Disney has received a lot of backlash on already, and fans are getting sick of it. Not because it's there, but because it's done so poorly that they've made their films just look so clean and soulless. Unsurprisingly, the film looks entirely CG, and it's really no shock that everybody hates this trailer. The dislikes are truly insane for a trailer. And when you watch the trailer, everything from the sets to the dwarfs to the animals has been made to look so cartoonish and oversaturated, making the style just seem incredibly fake and weightless. An issue that Disney has yet to solve despite all the resources it has at its disposal. While the CGI sucks, people can still recognize the dwarfs. Snow White, on the other hand, doesn't even feel like the same person. Sure, she's got the dress, plus Disney's terrible wardrobe malfunction, and she's got the songs, but that's where all the similarities end. Now, there isn't much to go off on in the trailer, but if you combine what you see there with the leak that shows Zelda's iteration of Snow White's most iconic songs, the sweet Disney princess is nowhere to be found. There's a very specific moment in the trailer where the evil queen is asking her magic mirror who is the fairest one of all, and the camera pops to Snow White, who wiggles her eyebrow with a knowing, arrogant smirk. It's small, but there is just no trace of the timid, sweet, kind princess people fell in love with. Instead, she's been replaced by someone who seems more brash and challenging. It's a lot more prominent in the leaked footage. In the original film, when Snow White arrives at the dwarf's cottage, she initially
the movie is so bad.
thinks it's the home of orphan children and
I
cleans
haven't even seen it.
the cottage, not just in hopes that they'll allow her to stay, but because she wants them to experience what it might be like to have a mother that would care for them. But that's not so much the case in the reimagining. When the dwarfs arrive home after spending all day in the mines, they're not surprised by a clean cottage and food awaiting on the table, because that would conform to gender stereotypes. But instead, they find a woman waiting to instruct them on how to clean their own home. Snow White almost seems villainous in the clip as she hands the dwarfs their cleaning materials, particularly as she hands over the broom. Orange light hits her
And they're turning Snow White even now.
face, and her voice comes off in a condescending manner. She seems more like a wicked stepmother using false sweetness to get her stepchildren to do her chores. Snow White then spends the rest of the clip dancing around while the dwarfs do all the work for her. This leaked footage perfectly demonstrates the message Disney has been preaching in basically all of its recent projects. The film isn't going to be a battle between kindness and vanity or love and hate, but a depiction of women's superiority over men. It further proved that Disney only seems to know how to write one type of woman these days, the strong female character, and in doing so they ignore and shame an entire group of girls who may not want to be leaders, instead dream of love, value kindness, and enjoy more simple pleasures in life, erasing a character girls looked up to for decades. While the studio has attempted to fix some of the film's issues, it's almost too late to be fixed now.
I guess they don't want to see girl pair.
And Disney will have to write this off as a complete disaster. And it doesn't just stop there. Gal Gadot and Rachel
Mr. Peller, the Mexican hero.
Zegler were very professional during their first few interviews together. They appeared to enjoy each other's company, with the two often complimenting each other. But it seems something might have changed between 2023 and 2024 as the film progresses. As people have been comparing Zegler and Gadot since their roles were announced, often calling Zegler the evil queen because of her attitude towards the film, and her haters are commenting on how there is no reason for Gadot's evil queen to be jealous of Zegler's Snow White, because they claim the older actress is actually the prettier woman. Now, we're not saying this is actually true, but her response to these comparisons just made things worse with the fans. While promoting the film, Zegler often came off as incredibly narcissistic, as any photos she posted were usually just of her. This was in stark contrast to Gal Gadot, who posted a short video of shots
He's starting to promote the movies.
with herself, her co-star, and the rest of the crew who had worked on the film. As what has been seen as a final shot, Zegler then posted a tweet where she thanked the fans for their support before declaring Free Palestine. And whilst this might seem like a good thing, with the actress trying to help out the people of Palestine,
But why do you want to involve in this?
Others saw it as a jab at the former Wonder Woman actress, who's an Israeli actress, and very vocal about her support of Israel. Because of this political rivalry, it seems Disney backtracked on a promised D23 presentation and removed Gal Gadot from singing scenes from both the films and the teaser trailer at the last minute because of her support for
That's just ridiculous.
Israel. And so she started backing out of interviews and diminishing her press tour appearances. But maybe because she also secretly hates Zegler. It's almost impossible to know, but it seems like the key actors are also falling out. And if the actors start hating each other, the fans hate the movie, the entire thing's constantly changed with just CGI, and nobody has any passion for the film left, this will make Snow White one of the worst films ever made, as it just seems like this entire project has been one massive failure. There's clearly a massive lack of love and passion
I guess they break the
the project that should have been doing all it could to honor the original, not just for the sake of the story, but because of how foundational it was to Disney's success. It's almost poetic that the film that changed the landscape of Disney is now the one destroying it.
Okay.